And we're live. Oh no. Where's Brian going?
I demand a trade.
Get a mental health break?
I need a mental health break. And I'm not vaccinated. So what's going on? Anyway, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now, just know that you are locked on To The Point with
Skip.
And the King. You guys go down there, click subscribe, click like, leave us some comments, leave us some juicy comments. Yeah, exactly. Go right down there. Is that what he said, or is that what she said? Anyway, who knows? Today we have the one and only Prab, Waraich from the Waraich Report. My man, you've been doing some great stuff. I love seeing your show. I love watching it, especially when you got our boy Robert on the show. Absolutely amazing, absolutely phenomenal. How are you doing today, my man?
Thank you for having me on here. I love you guys for having me on here. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you guys doing?
Oh,
good. Yeah.
Doing great. Because there's a lot of energy in the city of Toronto. Or, wait, hold on. What did Cardi say during the game? I'm from the T.O. Repping everywhere I go. And then my big brother, Mark Strong, a.k.a. Strizzy, introducing all of the Toronto Raptors players, the starting lineup. What did he say? By the way, out of the UK 03 OG, yeah. Okay, the Nigerian Prince, Precious Achiuwa. Let's get it on with Scotty Barnes, right? And fire at one, Goran Dragic. Yeah, and Steady Freddy. Oh, I loved it. Shout out to my brother. We'll talk soon. But the energy in the city of Toronto is absolutely phenomenal. It's amazing. And by the way, Skip, you did on our last episode call that starting lineup. You did say that's exactly who is going to start. So kudos to you, my man.
Didn't exactly work out for us, but in game one, at least. In game one.
In the first game, yes. And that's what I want to ask you, Prab.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, how did that energy translate into the Raptors offense? Was that a positive or a negative? Did they give them some jitters? What happened there?
That offense just looked downright awful. One thing I noticed right off the bat was everyone was individually trying to get their own points, and there's just absolutely no sort of ball movement. It has to start with Fred VanVleet. It has to start with Goran Dragic, because those are supposed to be our point guards. And if you ask me personally, I'm not too big on having Goran Dragic in the starting lineup. We'll talk a little bit more about that in later on. But just looking at some of these statistics here, Precious Achiuwa, he's supposed to be our center. He's 3 of 8 from the field. Fred VanVleet, who everyone was saying this entire offseason that he's not a point guard. He's not a point guard. He was 5 of 20, excuse me. OG Anunoby, who was supposed to be our number one option going into the season. Obviously, Pascal's out, 3 of 17. And then we got Chris Boucher, who's supposed to be our nice bench player. He was 3 of 10 from the field. So and no sort of enthusiasm in the starting lineup off the bench. It seemed like until Dalano Banton came in, but just our entire starters were struggling. There was no ball movement. It just seemed like they were just kind of just playing for the sake of playing, and they weren't really energized.
Really? So my question to you is, do you think there is an upside to that offense?
I do. It was funny, actually. I was live streaming the game, and I had talked about maybe the Raptors players are just a little bit nervous because they're playing in front of their home crowd after so long, and then you see a rookie come in and do what he did. But I do think there's a little bit of jitters. There's definitely some excitement. Maybe they're nervous. They finally have some fans cheering for them again in the Scotiabank Arena. We saw what the Tampa fans were doing to us, but I think there are definitely some jitters. Maybe they took Washington Wizards too lightly. I think there's just no energy. There's just that energy you talk about was just really lacking in our starters, our entire team, until Delano came in. So we were definitely missing that for sure.
One thing I noticed, speaking of the energy, just right from the jump, you saw when Strizzy was introducing them and the guys ran out on the floor. I noticed it right then. I was like, I remember Lowry coming in, like doing the thing where he goes down and like everyone's rolling around on the floor. There was none of that.
Yep.
They were just like walking up. They just looked like, what's happening? Like they were just there was no energy when they were running out onto the floor, and it carried over.
Now, Skip, does that energy translate into how they played defense? Because again, you did call it on their scrambling defense against opposing teams. Do you think that energy was still there, or do you think it's still jitters? Do you see a plus side? Do you see a minus side to this?
I'm pretty concerned about the defense, actually. Obviously, you look at that box score, like 98 to 83 or whatever it ended up as. Like, you look at that team, you're like, that's a terrible offensive team. That reminds me of the Magic, the year that we played them against the playoffs, and they were like the worst offensive team in the league or something, or pretty close to it. They were a terrible offensive team for a couple of years there. Even when they were still kind of contending, it was all on defense and not on offense. So you look at that score and you think, this is a terrible offensive team. They're fine on defense. They held them to 98 points. But I think that undersells the defensive issues a little bit. They gave up a ton of points in the paint in that game, 56 points in the paint. You look at their field goal percentage against, I mean, 44% is bad, but then you break it down even further, and they actually held them to 18% from three, which is good, but that means they were giving up 57% inside, which is horrendous. That's like the Washington Wizards whole team was playing like Kevin Durant, basically. Like, it's insane. Like, you cannot give up that high percentage on twos. And even, I think Andrew mentioned this on one of our previous episodes, like, they're just giving up too many blow-bys. I think what you have is you have a lot of kind of good individual defenders, but you don't have that tight-knit team defense yet. And I mean, OG is a good defender. VanVleet's a good defender. But the other three guys in the lineup, like, those are not all world defenders. They're guys, I mean, Scotty Barnes, we were told this guy's going to be an elite defender. I haven't seen it yet.
Robert told us.
Yeah, Robert actually said he was overrated on defense, and I'm kind of seeing that because he has the body to guard people, right? Like, he doesn't look like a bad defender, but he didn't jump off the page either in that game. I think he has the skills. I'm going to give him a pass because it's his first ever NBA game. Like, I don't think he was horrendous or anything, but I think there's another level that he could reach to become a serious like NBA defender. Precious Achiuwa, I mean, he looked a bit overmatched. I don't know if it's all on him, but they give up a lot of points inside. The fact is, even if he's not a terrible defender one-on-one, he's not a rim protector. They had no rim protection in that game. That's why Montrezl Harrell went off. And even you go back to the transition game, right? That's what we said before the year. Like, this team is going to live in transition. This is what they're all about. And sure, they had 10 steals. They had 18 points in transition. Those are okay numbers. They're not terrible. But you walk it back and you think about what makes a good transition team, right? Because you think transition, young, fast, long, good defense. That's what you think. But you wind it back 2 years, 3 years to when the Raptors won the championship. That wasn't a particularly young team. That wasn't a particularly fast team, at least at the back end. But they were a great transition team because good teams know how to run good transition. And it's almost like a football team with the quarterback hanging back. Like, you don't need a fast guy playing quarterback. You don't need Tom Brady to run the ball. You need a guy who can hang back and see the outlet pass. You don't necessarily need all five guys to run the floor at once. And it ties back to the defense because in the same sense, you want to build your defensive wall, right? You need to have that defensive wall to force those turnovers. So you're not gambling for steals. You're not trying too hard to get out in transition and just giving up clean layups. Like, it's great to have 18 fast break points, but like, you're going to lose if you're giving up a layup on every possession. So I thought there were a lot of defensive issues that they need to work through. I think they have players that have upside, but defensively as well as offensively, this is going to be a retooling year. I think that's kind of what we saw through the first game. I mean, we'll see what happens in Boston. That game hasn't happened as the time we're recording, but I think there's a lot of stuff to develop here.
Well, you know what? Listen, I gotta say, I did call it out on the last one. And I might eat my words a little bit, but I don't have to, because I did say this Raptors roster is very deep. They have a lot of depth. Very deep.
You still stand by that?
Unfortunately, Nick Nurse only utilized 10 players, the 5 starters, and the 5 guys off the bench. Right? The Raptors, based on their bench, I know there were some players that were slightly injured and they couldn't play, like my boy Utah. You know, you guys know how much I love that guy. You know, but Decker didn't play. Coach's decisions on a lot of players that didn't play. And I think that effectively deterred the Raptors and slowed them down, because if you look at what Washington's bench did towards the Raptors bench, now the Raps are a minus 6 points bench-wise. Even on the rebounds, cool, I get that, right? They did lead in the offensive rebounds for the bench. Assists, they were down 4. The Raps only had 2 assists on the bench, coming off the bench, right? They're down 2 steals, and they're down 1 block. And Boucher had both of those blocks, right? So I do see potential. Like Malachi Flynn didn't play. Utah didn't play. Decker didn't play, right? There's still so much more to that. But you know who did play? The Mandem from the Kipling bus, fam. You already don't know. The Torontonian guy. Mr. Dalano Banton, fam. He hit that 3-pointer. Right at the end. His first NBA bucket is a buzzer-beating 3-pointer from beyond half court. How truly great is that? That shows so much potential. I think this kid has like a huge upside. And right after he hit that, what do? He gave an assist to Boucher starting the 4th quarter. Boucher got an easy bucket. He got a rebound. Then he gave it a hockey assist. It went through Barnes, back down to Boucher. Boom, bucket. Now the Raps are back in the game, right? Then he had that swat with him and Scotty Barnes against Bradley Beal. I don't know why it wasn't counted in the box score. It should have been. But I think this kid's got a lot of potential. Prab, what do you think about Delano Banton?
So I don't know if you guys have seen my video, but originally when the Raptors did draft Delano Banton, I was not really high on the pick. I had not known much about Delano Banton, but he has really impressed me, not only in yesterday's game, but Summer League. We've seen a lot of improvement too with Delano Banton. And as I was talked about earlier, it was funny because we were talking about maybe the Raptors starters were nervous because they hadn't played in front of the home crowd. Yet this rookie comes in who's playing his first NBA game in front of an amazing crowd, and he comes in and does this. So it was great to see Delano just bring a little bit of confidence into the game, which the Raptors seemed like they were really lacking. It was not enough energy. They're really lacking confidence.
That's the key word right there, energy, right? Like you guys talked about energy in the pregame introductions and everything. Dalano was the only guy who showed up and actually played with energy. Everyone else kind of played like tentative, like, oh boy, we're supposed to win this game. I guess we better
Scotty
go out
too.
And force it. Scotty was okay in parts, but like even Scotty, like he was doing some really nice stuff, like no look passes and stuff, but he only ended up with 1 assist. I'm not hating on Scotty. He had a solid game as it was, but Dalano came in and he was that boost of energy. He was like, wake up guys, this is our home opener. Everyone else was kind of sleepwalking. And I don't know if that was just because there was too much of a break during preseason, if they were just like a little sluggish, if they were tentative. I know sometimes the worst pressure is when everyone expects you to win, when everyone's on your side. You kind of need to go into that environment where everyone's like sharking you and telling you you're terrible. So maybe, I mean, we'll see what happens in Boston, but we'll see.
Prab, did you see any plus sides to this game though? Because I got to say to everybody, like I was telling everybody, we're all Torontonians, well, except for you, Prab, but we're Torontonians, and there's that kind of culture, there's that kind of mentality where they lose one game and it's like, oh my God, blow everything up, trade everybody, get rid of the coach, get rid of this, get rid of this. It's one freaking game, okay? This game really doesn't matter. Wait until we get to like the 30th game and then talk to me about this, okay? So how did you feel about, did anything stand out to you? Like, was there any plus or minuses towards you from that game? Just seeing on that microcosm.
I think let's start with the negatives, is because that game was just downright brutal for the Raptors. I don't understand Nick Nurse's rotation sometimes. I understand, look, guys, we are just, of course, we're fans. He's an NBA coach, so he obviously does know a lot more than us. And I've talked about this several times, but there's so much that goes behind the scenes in practices, how that player is, who stays late for practices. So there's a lot of stuff we don't see when we talk about Nick Nurse shouldn't play this player or he should play this player more. He definitely does see a lot more, but I think, King, you talked about this a little bit in the start of the video, but you have so much depth. You use that depth. We played 9 guys until Dalano Banton came in, and we used 10 players the entire game, despite the fact that we were getting blown out. Yep. I think you need to utilize that depth we have. I know a lot of people were saying Sam Decker, but just even other guys. I would have liked to see Malachi Flynn play. Not saying he's going to be a difference maker.
Yes.
Give him some playing time. Aren't we supposed to be, although I think the Raptors are still going to be a good playoff team, it's part of this season is going to be focusing on development as well. Scotty Barnes played, Delano Banton played. That's great, but get some other guys in there. Justin Champagnie, you could argue you could have put him in as well. Yes. Get some rebounding help. So I was just a little bit disappointed. I know it's just game 1. I don't want to overreact, but that was one of the minuses that stood out to me. Let some other guys play as well. I mean, I talked about Fred and OG struggling, just absolutely struggling. They were combined 8 of 37 from the field. So you have to let some other guys play. So that was some of the negatives. If we're talking about positives, I honestly cannot think of any positive outside of Delano Banton. Scotty Barnes, he looked nice. You know what? I know we talked about him improving, but I really like what I saw from Scotty Barnes. His confidence I believe he's a 20-year-old, and just how you see him play, he does not play like a rookie. So it's encouraging signs to see Scotty Barnes. I'm sure he's going to get better as the season progresses, but him and Delano Banton were some of the pluses on opening night.
Well, let me just jump on
That's
that
awesome.
because I think the reason that Scotty and Delano stood out is because they were 2 of the best playmakers they had. Mm-hmm. And the Raptors, their offense was so brutal because they had no playmaking. They were not doing anything to create offense, especially in the half court. They just couldn't get anything going. And once Delano came in, I mean, it was mostly running. It wasn't quite set plays, but it was still like he was at least creating stuff and making things happen out there. And that's kind of what you need at the very minimum. Because I think what we saw with the offense is it's kind of what I called on the preseason show. Like they were just so stuck and they didn't know who to go to. They had no featured guy to take over the offense, and they had no playmaking to create plays for other guys. And that's when it gets totally stagnant. Yeah.
That's exactly what I want to ask you, Skip. On that last show where you said, who is their featured guy? If OG doesn't step up, who will? And you were right, because OG did not step up.
Well, it's going to be Fred VanVleet, and it's going to be a lot of drives into traffic that go nowhere. Like that's the downside of this team. VanVleet, like he's great as a spot-up shooter, but if he's your featured guy, you got problems. There's on that championship team, VanVleet was like the 6th man or something. He was not the guy taking every shot. So, as much as I think VanVleet is a valuable player, like, I don't think we can treat him like he's the next Lowry. I don't think we can treat him as if he's a featured player. He's great in his role. He's great as a guy, catches, shoots, defends, does a little bit of ball handling. That's a perfect role for him. He doesn't need to step up and try to be this quote unquote leader of the team, lead guard. I think when he gets that into his head, that means bad things for the Raptors offense. So
Prab, do you see a featured guy for the Toronto Raptors?
By featured, do you mean someone that's the leader or someone that stands out?
Someone that's someone that's going to lead the team to get them
to
win.
Take the shots. Someone's going to take the shots.
To take them to the promised land.
I think that's going to be Pascal Siakam. I think hopefully this slander that Pascal's been getting ever since the bubble, it lessens a little bit because everyone was overly excited about OG, and I think he's definitely going to have himself a good season. It is one game. People struggle, players struggle all the time, so it happens. But I think Pascal Siakam is going to be huge for the Raptors. I'm still expecting OG to be having a great season. So seeing him and Pascal, it's going to be like having 1A and 1B. So I'm excited about Pascal when he gets back because he'll take some of that focus off of guys like Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby. So it's not going to be as much pressure on those guys defensively anyways from the opposing teams. Right now, what we're seeing is the opposing teams are mostly focused on stopping guys like OG and Fred VanVleet. So once Pascal comes back, he's going to be dropping 20 a game, if not more easily. So it's going to be beneficial to our offense. He's also a great defensive player. He can rebound. He can really push that pace as well. We know Nick Nurse likes that transition game. So I think Pascal's going to be that guy.
So, Prab, on the Waraich Report, you're a host. I'm a host as well. So I'm going to hand the reins over to you and let you ask us some questions.
All right. The first question I got for you guys, and I know a lot of people feel strongly about OG, but who's going to be our leading scorer for this season? OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam? Or if you guys think someone else?
Skip.
Scotty Barnes.
No, shout out to Robert.
Well, I mean, at this point, he's stepping up, so I don't think we have to call out Robert on it anymore. He's showing up. I don't think he's going to be the lead scorer, though. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Pascal. I think OG is going to take a step forward, but I will still say that the guy who, when push comes to shove, the guy they trust more is probably going to be Pascal, and I think he's going to take more shots.
Do you have a question for me, Prab?
I was actually just going to ask both of you guys another question. So, King, if you want to answer that question, I'll throw a little twister at you guys for the next question. So,
okay.
So bring it on. What's the question?
All right. So I'm going to ask you guys. This is just kind of going off for fun, but if there's one player the Raptors do trade by NBA trade deadline, and we're speaking starters only, so that's assuming Precious Achiuwa is a starter, who goes at the NBA trade deadline if we are to move one player?
Goran Dragic.
Yeah, Goran Dragic is too easy.
I forgot he's starting. I was thinking as the season progresses, we have Gary Trent Jr. starting, but yeah, Goran Dragic. I didn't think that question through. So, if Goran Dragic isn't starting, let's say he's on the bench.
Yeah, that's
Gary Trent. Gary Trent.
Out of the 5 starters, let me think.
So that's assuming Fred, Gary, OG, Pascal, and Precious.
I don't.
It depends. Wait, hold on. That depends on who you're getting in return.
Yeah. So here's my answer.
That depends.
My answer is I don't think that any of those 5 guys will be traded. I think if there was to be a trade, it might be a Pascal trade. If there was, but that would be a big trade, and I'm not really seeing that happen. Like a Trent trade would be a smaller trade, but they might trade Trent. I don't know, man. I'm gonna stick with Pascal, but I'm not sure. I don't feel great about that.
All right. Hold on a second. It's the third quarter, right?
What? Are we Ben?
Wait. Wait.
Oh, I don't.
Wait. So your ambassador had to walk out during the third quarter? How does this guy support the team? I'm sorry, guys. I'm going off the rails here, but this really bothered me watching it. I watched the game 3 times, front to back. Okay? This guy is getting paid to support your Toronto Raptors and to put your Toronto Raptors on an international level and give them some sort of credibility, and he walks out during the third quarter. I'm sorry. Prab, you out there on the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
You out there, right? How do you feel about that, considering you are a loyal Toronto Raptors fan?
So I'm assuming you're talking about Pascal Siakam, right? Or is that supposed to be a Ben Simmons? Because Pascal Siakam also.
Drake walked out. Drake left after the game. Yeah.
After trash talking.
All right, I thought you were talking about Ben Simmons.
He was trash talking Montrezl Harrell, and then he left.
Okay, I got confused for a second because I thought you were doing another Ben Simmons, but then you said obviously putting the Raptors on the international. Okay, so Drake, what can you say about Drake, man? Look, I like his music. I know, King, you disagree, but that's not a good look, man. Like, come on, stick with your team through thick and thin, So I disagree with that. I think you just stick it out. I mean, most Raptors fans will watch the fourth quarter too, just because you want to see other players. It's one thing if you're really busy with job and kids and whatever, but come on, man. Drake, come on. You got time.
Fans leave early, but Drake, you're supposed to be on the payroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the payroll. You're getting paid. Guys, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. Prab, Hope you come back on with us. I hope we can be on your show. Reach
Absolutely.
out to your fan base, same way our boy Robert did. It's been nothing but a pleasure having you on, man. You are well versed. You know all about what you're talking about. You're very articulate. I appreciate it. You're a good wordsmith, just like Skip, who's a writer over there. I just talk like a Delano Banton. You know what I mean? Like you don't know, fam. I already know what it is. So I appreciate you coming on the show. On behalf of myself and Skip, it's absolutely amazing. Thank you very much. I've watched your show. You guys go down there. We're going to leave a link. Go down there, click subscribe on his show. Go check it out. Very informative, very up to date. So on that note, guys, Prab on the Waraich Report. You guys make sure to check him out. Skip at Dougie J's on Twitter. It's baseball season. Don't bother him. I know, right? Go Dodgers.
It's only baseball season for another week or two, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's crunch time for you. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the basketball season. You guys go find him. SimonBroder.com, on Amazon.ca. Go buy the book. You guys can find me, King Hussein, on all social media platforms. YouTube.com/ToThePointPodcast. Twitter /ToThePointRaps. And To The Point on Facebook and Instagram. On behalf of myself and the one and only Prab, Simon, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
Peace.
Peace.